Number 10. Can't take no for an answer. We've all heard rejection stories go bad, but one in Pakistan turned into a brutal display of violence when a man beheaded his girlfriend. 30-year-old Zahir Jafar was the Pakistani-American son of a wealthy industrialist and didn't take no for an answer. He'd been dating 27-year-old Noor Muqaddam for a while, but there was always something off. It didn't take long for his toxic behavior to surface as he started manipulating his girlfriend into marrying him. Apparently, he lured her to his mansion to reconcile and then proposed. Of course, her answer didn't change. It was still a no. The thing that did change, though, was Zahir's outrage. Not only did he explode into an abusive fury, but he locked her in his home for 2 days. He tortured her with brass knuckles and abused her sexually, too. In fact, at one point, she managed to escape her shackles and jump out of a window, only to be blocked by his staff at the front gate. She was then dragged back in and beheaded. The incident sent shockwaves across the country as Jafar tried to plead insanity. That being said, he was eventually handed a death sentence by the courts for his crime. Number 9. Suitcase body. In February 2019, a New York woman's body was found stuffed inside a suitcase almost 6 days after she'd gone missing. The perpetrator was none other than her ex-boyfriend. 24-year-old Valerie Reyes was a Barnes & Noble clerk in Connecticut, where she'd been dating Javier da Silva Rojas from New York City. According to her mother, Norma Sanchez, the pair hadn't seen each other in well over a year and had gone their separate ways before the murder. On January 28th, Reyes told her mom that she'd be killed and that she didn't feel safe in her apartment. But when Norma asked whether Rojas was bothering her, she said it wasn't him. Just a couple of days after the call, Reyes went missing and her body was found in a suitcase on February 5th. According to the police, she was killed in her own home. The case felt like a dead end until police caught Rojas trying to use Reyes' bank card to withdraw $1,000 from an ATM. Apparently, he'd already taken out over $5,000 since the incident first happened. It didn't take long for him to speak up after his arrest, though, since he told the police that Reyes died when she hit her head and fell while the couple was having consensual sex. He also allegedly admitted to binding her hands and feet to force her body into a case after she passed before abandoning it on the side of the road. In September 2011, Rojas was given 30 years behind bars. Number 8. Machete lover. Most relationships go toxic because someone gets manipulative or possessive. This man from Cheshire, England, though, took things to a whole new level when he decided to attack his girlfriend with a machete. 21-year-old Chelsea Morris met 28-year-old Ryan Abbott in 2016 through mutual friends, and the pair hit it off instantly. So much so that they actually moved in together a few months after the meeting. But of course, things didn't pan out the way Chelsea had hoped. 3 years into the relationship, she'd been isolated from her friends because, well, Ryan was too possessive and didn't like her hanging out with other men. Her new job ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back, since it essentially sent her boyfriend into a drug-fueled rampage. Chelsea had gone out for dinner to celebrate getting a new job and was expecting a warm welcome back home after the good news. Little did she know Ryan was waiting for her with a machete. As soon as she walked in, he stabbed her in the back. The next hit was aimed at her head, which she luckily evaded by raising her arm. Still, the blade slashed her finger, making her need surgery. She thought she was going to die right there. Luckily, though, Ryan decided to spare her life and went outside. There, he started another rampage, terrorizing the neighborhood. In fact, the shirtless thug smashed doors and car windows, causing over $3,000 worth of damage. Thankfully, the police didn't take long to arrive at the scene and arrest him. He was jailed for 4 years with an extra 5-year restraining order against Chelsea. Do you know anyone that needed to get a restraining order? Tell us in the comments and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 7. The birthday party. In March 2022, a 27-year-old man was taken into custody for killing his ex-girlfriend after a birthday party and hiding her body, which was found 2 months later near Kennewick. On March 4th, Moses Lake police received a call about a missing person, Yanira Cedillos. After investigating, they discovered that Cedillos had been out the night before celebrating her birthday with friends. The prime suspect was her 27-year-old ex-boyfriend Juan Gastelam, who had been calling her during the night, asking her who she was with and where she was. Apparently, the pair used to live together at one point, but broke up due to toxicity in their relationship. At some point during the night of March 3rd, Cedillos got into an argument with her friends and left. A few hours later, though, she called one and asked to be picked up on Stratford Road. But when her friend arrived, she was nowhere to be found. They proceeded to call Cedillos, but only heard a male voice in the background yelling and asking who was calling before the phone disconnected. That was the last time anyone ever heard from her. She was reported missing morning after she failed to show up for work. According to the investigators, Gastelum picked up Cedillos and drove her to her apartment around midnight. That's where he allegedly killed her. He now awaits sentence as his trial plays out. Number 6. Restraining order. Sometimes even a restraining order isn't enough, and in 2006 an enraged ex-boyfriend's rampage killed 3 people, including himself. 35-year-old Daria Grasso wanted to end things with her abusive boyfriend Sean Creamer, but like every other toxic relationship, he couldn't handle rejection. So, unsurprisingly, he threatened to harm her instead. She did manage to get a restraining order against him and even sent her 13-year-old daughter to her father's home. In fact, she was so paranoid about Sean that she even asked a friend, David Hinkle, to stay the night and to be her bodyguard. Still, none of these things fazed Creamer. He was hell-bent on getting revenge. So, before the restraining order kicked in, he parked his car at a nearby restaurant and went to the RV park with a loaded gun. Of course, he was confronted by the security guard at the gate, but he shot the officer. He then went to the ex-girlfriend's RV home. Shots were fired as a struggle ensued between him and the bodyguard. While this was happening, Daria managed to escape through a window and ran to her father's house. Bloodshed was inevitable, as Creamer shot and killed Hinkle, but weirdly enough, he then stepped outside and turned the gun on himself to cap off this strange sequence of events. All 3 men were found dead when deputies arrived. Number 5. Too little, too late. In June 2017, a woman from Kent, England was stabbed to death by her ex-boyfriend in a shopping center car park. The case sent shockwaves across social media as police knew what was coming but still failed to protect her. Let's rewind to July 2016 when 23-year-old Molly McLaren met a 26-year-old guy, Joshua Stimpson, on Tinder. The pair hit it off and dated for almost 7 months. But their relationship became strained when Molly told friends she was no longer attracted to Stimpson because of his manipulative behavior. So one thing led to another and the pair broke up. Just a week after, Molly started getting death threats from Stimpson, who'd felt that he'd been betrayed. Fearing for her life, she went to the police and filed a report, which didn't make a difference. On the morning of June 29th, Molly went to her gym and started working out. But when Stimpson showed up, he started working out right next to her. She then immediately texted her mom. "Mom, he's turned up at the gym and come next to me," she wrote. Molly also contacted her friends and somehow managed to leave. On her way home, she decided to make a stop at a shopping center. Little did she know, though, that Stimpson had been following her, and within seconds he got out of his car, walked toward Molly, and yanked her door open with a knife in his hand. Stimpson attacked her as she screamed, and when a man finally helped pull him off, it was already too late. Witnesses said they saw Josh, quote, continuously stabbing Molly in the neck and head in a frenzy. He stabbed her 75 times, and when police finally turned up, he admitted to his crime without any remorse. And after only 4 hours in court, Stimpson was given 26 years in prison. Number 4. Football deception. In November 2016, a Maryville college player shot his girlfriend in her sleep. To throw cops off his scent, he tweeted about how much he loved her a few hours before his arrest. William Riley Gall, an 18-year-old from Knoxville, Tennessee, and 16-year-old Emma Walker had been dating for a while. They were high school sweethearts, but when Gall graduated, things started to go sour. Eventually, Emma decided that she'd had enough and broke up with him. According to her aunt, Gall refused to accept this and kept bugging her. This is a pretty normal situation for any toxic breakup, so it didn't raise any alarm bells. On a fateful Monday morning, though, the Walkers' family's world turned upside down when they found their daughter's body in her bedroom. She'd been shot through the window. Police started investigating the murder as social media tributes poured out for Emma from both her friends and family. Among these was Gall, who posted a lengthy note professing his love for her and remembering their past. To think that every memory we have, every happy, special moment we shared, can never be relived. "I love you, Emma Jane Walker," he wrote. That being said, a day after the murder, he was arrested by police while trying to destroy evidence. And after being charged with 7 counts, including first-degree murder, Gall was sentenced to spend life in prison. Number 3. Gruesome murder. In September 2022, New York police were called to do a wellness check on a Brooklyn woman. But when they got there, all they found were her dismembered body parts. 22-year-old Deasia Johnson was in an abusive relationship with 24-year-old Justin Williams. Even though the pair had been together for a while, she wanted to end things. After all, he had a habit of beating her and had even broken her bones a few times. So things were really bad, so much so that she had gotten a protection order against him. Then on August 21st, it all went horribly south as Johnson returned home from her shift at Queen Macy's to never be seen alive again. The surveillance footage showed Justin visiting her in the days leading up to her murder. Still, no one caught a whiff of what had happened. It all turned suspicious when Justin moved into the apartment and wouldn't let anyone in to check up on her because he'd murdered her in cold blood. Not only that, but he actually dismembered her body with a meat cleaver and wrapped it in 2 suitcases. He used towels and cleaning products to mask the dead body's scent. As a matter of fact, he did this for almost a month and lived with her corpse with his new girlfriend before the police finally showed up. He then made a run for it through the window, but it didn't take long to catch him. Justin was eventually charged with murder and mutilating a corpse. Number 2, no church days. We've heard of partners getting abusive thanks to jealousy, but this Minnesota man ended up murdering his ex-wife because she wanted to take the kids to church. 31-year-old Anders Odegaard worked as an attorney and had been separated from Carissa for a while, but since the pair had 5 children together, they still had to meet up from time to time. But it wasn't a healthy relationship by any means. Arguments are fairly common in these situations, but Carissa taking the kids to church was apparently where Anders drew the line. He exploded into a murderous rage, almost as if he had been possessed, and started attacking her. He grabbed a knife from the kitchen and kept beating her until she was lying on the floor in a pool of blood. Obviously, the kids ran outside to get help and asked a man to call 911 for their mother because she was, quote, bleeding really bad. By the time authorities arrived, it was already too late. Anders was standing there, wearing nothing but a pair of boxers with blood on his face. All he said was, "I don't feel right." Next to him was Carissa's body, and even though she was rushed to the hospital, she didn't make it. Anders was then charged with second-degree murder. Number 1, achieving nirvana. In September 2014, an Indiana man was arrested for killing his ex-girlfriend, dismembering her body, and eating her organs to achieve a sense of higher consciousness. 33-year-old Joseph Oberhansley was always a troubled man, but no one could have guessed that he'd turn into a cannibal. On September 11, 2014, he had a fight with his 46-year-old girlfriend, Tammy Jo Blanton. Apparently, the pair broke up right there and then, and Blanton kicked Joseph out of her house. She then called the police and asked for protection, since Joseph was threatening to break into her home. The next morning, Blanton didn't show up to work. The officers went back to her house at 10 a.m. and found Oberhansley inside, eating his ex-girlfriend's body. They arrested him on the spot with some pretty obvious and damning evidence. This ain't his first rodeo, though, as he's also served time for killing a girlfriend and shooting his mom when he was 17. Thankfully, he's now serving a life sentence and can't harm anyone else. Thanks for watching. What's the craziest encounter you've had with an ex? Tell us in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on The Bad Badger.